Today on Newsgirls, Trump's third-term loophole explained. Only bans being elected. Says nothing of succession.
Telling his friends that Vance is probably going to be the presidential nominee.
The true story behind the morning show. It's actually one of Apple TV's most watched shows ever.
And then one day he calls me up and he tells me that Reese is interested.
Each season parallels what's happening in the journalism industry.
And Chipotle drone deliveries.
They kind of went viral when they were first announced.
Started by delivering medical supplies.
The drones are fully autonomous.
Welcome to Newsgirls. I'm Wren.
And I'm Mabel. Let's get into the stories. So even though the 2028 presidential elections feel so far away, I mean, Trump hasn't even been in office for a year yet, it does seem like DC is really buzzing about who might be up next after last week's elections.
Yeah, and we made social videos on Instagram and TikTok about, for the Dems and the Republicans, who is the most likely candidates and who most voters want to run. And both of those did really well. We got so much engagement, so many comments. People feel very strongly about who they want for 2028.
And so from last week's elections, the big takeaway for the Republicans really were that, I mean, they really underperformed. And it kind of led to two major concerns within the party. So the first is that, without having Trump on the ticket, can Republican voters feel like excited enough to vote? And then second, the results kind of show how dissatisfied people across the country are feeling right now. Trump is leading the country. He has the House, he has the Senate, he has the Supreme Court, and he's been in power for like 11 months. He can't really keep blaming Biden like he used to for like the border and the economy. It's all under his control, and the government shutdown, that was the longest shutdown in history. So people are dissatisfied and there's no one really to blame but Trump and the Republicans.
Yeah, it feels like the tides are turning because of the blue wave. And then after that, people are making predictions like James Carville, who's a really well-known political strategist who ran Clinton's campaign, came out and said he would bet money that Democrats will take the White House in 2028. And then Steve Bannon made the weirdest comment over the weekend. He, of course, is Trump's chief strategist and is still a huge MAGA activist. And he said to a group of conservatives, if Republicans lose the midterms in 2028, some of us in this room are going to prison, myself included.
Like, what does that mean? Is he admitting to something?
Yeah, I think he means because Democrats are going to come after us and target us. But it still is okay, why would you say it?
So we can get into the conversation of who would be on this hypothetical ticket, at least for the Republicans. And obviously this is contingent on the primaries, but ever since last week, there have been a lot of rumors about what this ticket could look like. And it seems like a Vance Rubio ticket is very, very likely, which makes sense. I mean, Trump has been suggesting that the two run together for a while. They're both young. Everyone in the party really, really likes them. And apparently they're really good friends. They used to be in the Senate together. And apparently they would get lunch all the time and talk about movies.
I can see that. They also both seem kind of like the adult in the room a lot of the time with the Republican shenanigans.
No, it's true. And that's probably why they get along. So far, there hasn't been really a need to discuss, who would be the president on the ticket, who would be the VP. It's so early. But reporting last week has shown that Rubio has been going around telling his best friends that Vance is probably going to be the presidential nominee on the ticket. So he's already kind of taking a backseat, which we even discussed. We were kind of thinking, why is Rubio so MIA these days?
Well, maybe if he sees himself as the VP nominee, it's just helping him to try to push Vance on everyone. It's Vance, you guys, don't even question it, because he knows it's also helping himself.
Yeah, I mean, Vance is definitely the most popular choice as of now within the administration, and even Trump voters think that. So there was a political poll that came out a couple of weeks ago asking Trump voters who they wanted to see run in 2028. And Vance was the leading favorite with 35%.
That's a lot.
And I can see why Trumpers really like him. He seems really aligned with Trump and they seem really close, unlike Mike Pence, rip. And even though most VPs do take a backseat, especially the VPs of Trump, who is the center star, takes up all the oxygen in the room, Vance has managed to also be in the spotlight during this past 11 months.
Well, not always in the best light, RIP to the Pope.
It does seem though the position that he's taking is as Trump's kind of attack dog when it comes to redistricting and the government shutdown. As we've seen, he's been aggressively trolling Democrats on social media. He's going on all the talk shows, really explaining Trump's agenda to people. And it seems from JD Vance's point of view, this is all working in his favor because it just shows Trump voters how aligned he is with Trump. When it comes time for him to run, there will seem like there's no other choice except to vote for him because he seems like Trump's heir. And it's been fun to zoom in on what Vance actually does because he seems like a very mysterious figure that's always there in the room. But what does he actually believe? What does he actually push for? And Interestingly, he hasn't been segregated to one issue the way past vice presidents have been. Usually they're given a very specific issue or portfolio to tackle. He said that Vice President Kamala Harris kind of served as a cautionary tale. She was given, the border. And because of that, she was kind of shunted out of a lot of other really important conversations. And so for Vance, it seems like the most important thing is to be in the room where it happens. And he has been. He's been not the most vocal, but White House aides have said every important meeting, Vance is right behind Trump. He's basically his shadow there. But it seems like by taking Trump's side and everything, he has had to flip-flop a lot on his own positions. Like, for example, one of Vance's biggest stances was to show military restraint, which a lot of Republicans appreciated. And he didn't want the U.S. to get involved in global conflict, open-ended conflict, non-identified missions. That was something that he really stood for. But obviously, that's not what's been happening during this administration. Trump is involved in everything from Thailand to Gaza to Russia. And Vance has had to be along for the ride.
Yeah, and really defend it.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the vice president does have to take the side of the president, but critics have really pointed out that he hasn't done anything to sway Trump the other way, with Trump bombing Iran over the summer to the bombing of, alleged smugglers on the Venezuelan coast. Vance is just fully supporting it. And I think that will come to haunt him when it comes time for him to run, because there is just so much back and forth about what he's saying. Epstein, freedom of speech, there's a lot.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to, and this is what Kamala faced to, how popular is the president?
Yeah.
Because if Trump is popular, then Vance gets to be a part of that win. But if Trump isn't popular, then he goes down for Trump's missteps. And one of the turning points in Kamala Harris's campaign that people point to is when she was on The View and she was asked, is there anything that you would have done differently from Biden? And she said, I can't think of anything. And so if Vance is asked that question, it's going to be interesting to see if he will list things or if he just wants to be so united that he won't.
Yeah, I mean, that is a tricky game to play. You need to be so aligned with the president to get his voters, to get his support, to have his backing, but also keep enough distance so that you can carve your own path. And it doesn't really seem like Vance has done that. And people will also probably hold against him. Remember, in his book, he called Trump the American Hitler and was super against Trump until clearly he found an opportunity. Now he's his vice president, his puppet. And so going back to the rest of the political poll about, who Trump voters would want to see on this ticket, 35% said Vance, 16% said that they don't know, they don't care. Only 2% named Rubio, which is really, really low.
Yikes.
Yeah. 2% named Nikki Haley. Ted Cruz even got 1%, which is crazy. And then everyone else, Mike Pence, RFK Jr., Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, all these losers didn't even hit 1%.
Well, I know she's not on the list, but Marjorie Taylor Greene is going viral because people think she might be positioning herself to run in 2028 because she's kind of on this redemption tour and everyone is is she making sense? She called Pelosi's career incredible. She criticized her own party for not having a healthcare plan. She's been one of the only prominent Republicans to call what happened in Gaza a genocide. So she's definitely up to something. I don't know if it's 2028, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I can't believe we're thinking that Marjorie Taylor Greene might be moderate. I never thought we'd ever think that.
No.
And then if you're wondering what the other 28% of voters voted for in this poll, 28% said that Trump should run again, which is weird.
But they're kind of following Trump's lead because he has been teasing another presidential run. He said in interviews there are methods for him to serve a third term. Bannon has been saying in interviews there's a plan in place. Trump's even been selling merch, 2028 merch, that interestingly also feature the phrase rewrite the rules. So that might hint in the direction of how they think they're going to pull this off.
That's insane.
So today we thought we would break down what is this alleged loophole that Trump supporters think they've found and whether it's legally sound. So just to lay the foundation, the 22nd Amendment says, quote, no person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice. So if we wanted to change the Constitution, it would require 2/3 approval from the Senate and the House and 75% of state governments. So Republicans don't have anywhere near those numbers. But then if you're asking, well, couldn't the Supreme Court just strike down this amendment the same way Trump is asking them to strike down birthright citizenship? Well, it turns out, we looked into this, birthright citizenship is only vulnerable because there's some ambiguity in the language. So that amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. So what subject to the jurisdiction thereof means has been historically debated. And the current interpretation is that that applies to the children of undocumented immigrants. And we currently exclude children of foreign diplomats because they have diplomatic immunity and they only have to abide by the laws in their home country. So we are already doing some selective application. So that's why that one is way more vulnerable. Whereas 22nd Amendment, super cut and dry, no ambiguity. You cannot serve more than 2 terms.
Well, that's reassuring. But what is this potential loophole then?
The 22nd Amendment only bans someone from being elected. It says nothing of succession. So Vance runs as president, Trump runs as VP. They are sworn in day one. Vance resigns. Trump ascends to the presidency again.
So Trump can be VP.
Well, this is where the loophole comes in. So the 12th Amendment says no one who is constitutionally ineligible to be president can be vice president. So based on what we know about the 22nd Amendment, Trump would be ineligible to be VP. And every credible constitutional scholar has said that is what shuts this succession loophole down. But there is also an argument to be made that the 12th Amendment only refers to the presidential eligibility requirements that are laid out in Article 2 of the Constitution. And all those are age, citizenship, and residency. Because when the 12th Amendment was written, there was no 22nd Amendment. That didn't come for 150 years later until after FDR when we wanted to put term limits on. So it's never been tried in court, obviously, because no president has ever tried to get around serving more than 2 terms.
It's just confusing to me. I don't know how you can use one amendment to like disqualify the other. You have to take them all together. How can they just be like, well, it says this in the 12th. Let's just totally ignore the 22nd that says specifically that this is not allowed.
Right. Currently, the Constitution says you cannot serve more than 2 terms. So that now adds an eligibility requirement to the list. Plus, for more reassurance, the Supreme Court in the past has ruled you can't use clever tricks to try to like end run the Constitution because it's so clear what the intention of the 22nd Amendment was,
right?
That they would look more at like you're violating the purpose of this amendment more like than how did you do it. And keep in mind, Trump will be 82 years old. Like, is he even going to be physically capable of running at that age? He's already the oldest president.
And Trump cannot run a 3rd term. You heard it here first on Newsgirls. So we spent a lot of time obviously going over what the Republicans' strategy is, what is their plan for 2028. So now we're going to go through the Dems' 2028 plan because that's a lot more open-ended.
So there was also a pretty surprising poll that came out that asked Democratic voters who they would want to run. And the top choice was Pete Buttigieg. And we have really not seen a lot of him.
No, where is he?
We talked about him on the show when Kamala's book came out and she said he was my first choice for VP, but America wasn't ready for a Black woman and a gay vice president. And he did respond to that saying, like, he gives Americans more credit, which I'm sure if he's eyeing a presidential run, he's like, let's change that narrative. Like, please. And we got so many comments of people who love him. Like, he definitely has the most support on our video. But then there's also a side that was like, he's a establishment moderate. They called him out for not congratulating Mamdani last week.
Oh.
Then second, obviously, Newsom. Seems like a shoo-in. He's not even pretending anymore. He's saying, yes, I'm thinking of running in 2028. He had that huge win last week with the redistricting California. And then third on the list was really surprising to us, AOC. I get that she has so much support, but because she's such a polarizing figure, even within the Democrats, can she even win a primary? And when we made our video last week breaking down these results, we said, let's watch what happens in New York to see how voters respond to a Democratic socialist. Well, since then, The Independent just published an article titled, Zohran Mamdani has paved the way for an AOC run for president.
But that's really interesting to me because I heard a Zohran interview where they asked him, would you support AOC running for president? And he like declined to answer.
Safe strategically, I guess.
But he's like a part of the same party. So I don't know why.
He's also really close to Bernie, who is also on this list.
Is he going to run?
Well, he would be 87 when he was sworn in. I do think
it's
people are just going to be like, you're too old, dude.
Yeah.
And then Kamala is also on the list, of course, and she declined to run for California governor. And now she's finally saying, yes, I'm thinking of running in 2028. And she was asked whether she could still be the first woman president. And she said, possibly. And then the rest of the list is pretty much well-known governors, Whitmer, Beshear, Pritzker, Shapiro, Wes Moore. And a lot of those are popular Democrats in purple or even red states in Beshear's case. So that's a huge asset. And ABC News has been tracking like early campaigning that's already underway. And so many of these contenders have just been doing like rallies and events in battleground states. So the election has absolutely already started.
I mean, 2028 is going to be crazy. I mean, it's the first time in 12 years that an incumbent isn't running.
Well, maybe.
Whatever administration, Republican, Democrat, comes in is really going to set the tone for what the country could look like for the next decade, possibly. And it'll be the first time in a while that the conversation doesn't totally revolve around Trump. And it's interesting how, I mean, through this discussion, seeing how the two parties have such opposite problems, because on one hand, you have a party that's changed so much into just revolving around this one guy. Trump is the sun, and all of these Republicans are like the solar system kind of revolving around him. And so what will, the next phase of the Republican Party look like without him? Whereas the Democratic Party, there's this power vacuum just looking for a charismatic leader to unite everybody. So it's interesting to kind of see how different these two parties, the different positions that they're in leading up to 2028.
Well, we are so excited today to be speaking to the guy who wrote the book that inspired one of the biggest shows on TV right now. It's actually one of Apple TV's most watched shows ever, The Morning Show.
And since we're journalists, you can't be too surprised that we love this show. It's basically a look behind kind of the drama of the morning news industry, and it's really fun to watch. Jennifer Aniston's in it, Reese Witherspoon, so there's a lot of star power, and there's some fun contrast because obviously morning news is so light, everyone has a smile on their face, but then behind the scenes there's a lot of like dark drama going on. So we're on season 4 now, and the finale is going to come up in a couple days.
The show is based on the book Top of the Morning that was written by Brian Stelter, who you might recognize from being CNN's chief media analyst, and he basically embedded himself within Good Morning America and Today and gathered all these interviews and told the story of their epic ratings rivalry at the moment that it was transitioning from Today being on top to Good Morning America. So it was really interesting to see all of the strategy behind the scenes of who's hosting and the stories and branding and everything. So without further ado, let's get to our interview.
So Brian, we are such huge admirers of your work as a journalist, but also we're just huge fans of The Morning Show.
Thank you.
We think it does such a good job of just showing how chaotic and high stakes broadcast news can be. And so we wanted to start off just going back to the beginning because we know that the show is inspired by your book, Top of the Morning. So can you tell us what inspired you to write the book, like what the process was like?
The book was actually my book editor's idea. And I was meeting with editors in New York, pitching a bad idea for some other book that I never wrote. I honestly cannot even remember what the idea was. It was that bad. But this guy took mercy on me. He said, what about morning TV? Early 2000 teens, this was one of the biggest chairs in TV. This was Katie Couric's chair, Meredith Vieira's chair, and now it was going to be Ann Curry. So we didn't know that there was going to be all this drama and she was going to get pushed out and GMA was going to beat Today. And we didn't know about any of that. Then the morning show world exploded in front of me and it became a really interesting story. But I think morning TV is always interesting because it's a vulnerable, weird time of day. People are just waking up. They turn on the TV. They want to see what's going on in the world. And they feel like they know the men and women who are hosts. They feel like it's part of the family. And these shows try to portray themselves as families, but they're actually incredibly dysfunctional.
Well, that's what we were thinking, like reading the book. It's like you were there when the pivotal moment happened. Like you could not have timed it better that you happened to be.
Yeah.
Were you kind of embedded in both shows? Like
I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I certainly didn't know when I was spending time in the control rooms what was going to make the final cut. GMA gave me great access. Why? Because they were winning. They were starting to win. Of course, they wanted me to tell the story, right? The Today Show was helpful in some ways, but they shut down on me once Ann Curry was demoted, once Matt Lauer was blamed, once it became a scandal. Obviously, those folks were not as accessible.
We know you were at the Times, then you moved to CNN. When your editor pitched you the idea of morning news, did that just kind of seem so random to you? Like, why not something on evening? Why a part of the industry that you're just not really a part of?
I definitely wasn't as steeped in the history of morning TV when he brought it up. But I knew that the mornings were where the money was and where the money still is. For the nightly news programs, Yes, they have prestige and audience, but the real money is made in the mornings. And I could feel that shift happening as a beat reporter at the New York Times. So it did intrigue me for that reason. And also the mix of high and low, the mix of hard and soft news. The idea that when you are anchoring a morning show, you're doing cooking segments and you're doing fitness segments. But the biggest story in our lifetime happened on the morning shows. It was 9/11. All of a sudden, you go from interviewing some author about some random book to covering the Twin Towers being attacked.
Yeah, I think reading your book and then watching the show, kind of, because we've never worked in morning TV, it gives us a new appreciation for how versatile those journalists have to be.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes us into to the show. How the heck did it happen that your book became this hit Apple TV show? Like, what did you get a call one day? Like, walk us through the process?
For people who don't know, what I'm about to describe is very, very, very rare. This does not happen. So somebody comes along and buys the TV rights. And that happened pretty quickly. There was an idea about a made-for-TV movie, about all the drama. There was a script written, and then the movie never got made. And that's usually what happens. Usually that's where the project dies. For me, the book as a TV show got a second life a few years later. It was literally like 3-4 years later when this guy, Michael Ellenberg, who had been an executive at HBO, called me up asking if the rights were available. He was able to show it to Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston. And then one day he calls me up and he tells me that Reese is interested. And, that's the moment where you realize, oh, this project's actually going to get made. It took a long time. It went through, years of development and production. It was a bidding war between some of the streamers and networks about who was going to acquire it. And for Apple, it made a lot of sense because it became Apple's first big tentpole show when Apple TV came onto the market.
And we know that you're a producer on the show, which is also so cool. We are interested in how involved are you? Are you helping come up with storylines? Are you kind of the person that they touch base with because you're in the industry so they can run stuff by you being like, is this realistic or not?
That's exactly what I do. It's the perfect side hustle. Being a consultant, being a producer on the show. Usually, once per season, I'm on set. I'll visit. I'll hang out with the actors and producers for a night, but they don't need me when they're on set. Where I'm able to be a little bit helpful is in the writing process early on when we're cracking open a new season, thinking about where to take the show, when the writers have questions about how the real newsroom actually operates. That's where I end up being helpful.
Yeah, I mean, you do a great job because something that we love about the show is that each season parallels what's happening in the journalism industry. Like season 1 was really focused on Me Too. Season 2 got into COVID. Season 3 was my favorite. Like the hacking, the corporate interest, like buying news was really interesting. And so now we're on season 4. Can you just tell us about how did you decide what to make this about? Obviously, it had to be pretty timely.
And the difficult thing about the show is because the writers are working on it almost 2 years before it streams, you really are, in a way, trying to predict the future. Referencing AI, referencing how artificial intelligence, Gen AI is upending media companies, both in positive and negative ways. I think you see some of the anxieties in newsrooms coming through in their characters. And of course, you see this continued corporate struggle over who's in charge, what's the identity, and what are the political stakes as well.
So as of now, kind of the central conflict from your book hasn't really been explored on the show. We haven't gotten to see a lot of characters from a rival, like morning TV show, and like maybe the passing of the baton of who's the leader. Could that be a theme in maybe season 5?
I would be surprised if it was.
It would be good.
I would enjoy it too. I think there's a lot there, but I think I think in the morning show, you're seeing this continued expanding of the world beyond just the morning day part, right? Yeah. So much of the corporate intrigue, and also, it's so important, just the personal experiences, the personal lives of the characters, right? I did think that's one of the most important observations that I brought to the project, especially early on, is that the hours, the lifestyle takes a toll, and being on TV fries your brain. And I think we see that in Alex Levy's character, to some degree, Jennifer Aniston's character on the show. It also means that you're up and you're at it and you're covering the news when everybody else is just waking up. Whether it's an election night, whether it's a football game, no matter what it is, people wake up and you're actually the one breaking the news to them I know that's changing to some degree in the cell phone, digital media, social age, but there's still a really incredible connection between the viewers and the hosts. And I think that's the story to keep mining.
Yeah, I think you said in the book, like George Stephanopoulos wakes up at 2:45. I was like, oh my gosh, I
And
wonder.
meditates right
And
away.
still
Brilliant.
meditate. Well, while we have you here, we also want to talk to you because we know you've studied the media landscape. This isn't the only book you've written about networks. You've written a couple about Fox News. So we just want to get your take on what is happening right now. We see networks bowing to Trump through settlements or pulling, just straight up pulling hosts off the air. Are you worried about the future of broadcast journalism when you see things like this happening?
I think I'm worried about the future of journalism for 10 or 20 different reasons. And you're hitting on a big one, but I say that because I think it's not happening in a vacuum. Look at this month with Trump and the BBC. Trump is able to squeeze the BBC because it's vulnerable, because its business model is changing, because it's been losing trust from the audience. I think we saw that with CBS, with 60 Minutes, and Trump as well. Trump was able to turn this bullshit meritless lawsuit into something real, partly through the power of his office. I think the problem with making it out to be that simple is that CBS and ABC are also doing great work covering Trump on a regular basis, et cetera, et cetera.
Do you think that what's happening now is going to kind of forever change the media landscape in this way? Do you think what he's done in terms of taking a lot of the independence away from journalism, will that stay with us kind of past his term? Or do you think this is just a phase and we need to wait it out and things will go back to normal?
I don't know if he's taken independence out of journalism. I always point out that these newsrooms are doing tremendous work right now during Trump 2.0. There is a part of me that believes there will be not a snapback to normalcy, but a drift back toward normalcy. This is where I, hold firm and steady, and I have to hold on to this because if I don't believe this, then what are we all doing? Most people want to know what's real. Most Trump voters want to know what's true. Most Trump opponents want to know what is true in the world. And then they can fight about it, of course. But there is still a hunger and a desire and a need to know what is real and true in the world, especially in an environment where a president lies to the public constantly.
So we're all used to ordering food delivery, but imagine you're on Grubhub, you're ordering your Chipotle burrito, but instead of a delivery driver biking up or driving up to your house, a drone flies over and drops your burrito at your front door.
Yeah, imagine like a burrito literally flying into you. It's such a cool concept, and you might have seen these videos. They kind of went viral a couple months ago when they were first announced. So we're really excited to talk to the company behind it, Zipline, that basically specializes in making drones.
And this company actually started by delivering medical supplies in hard to reach areas, first in Rwanda, then they expanded to Ghana, Nigeria, the Ivory Coast, Kenya, Japan, and now in the US. And in the areas where they provide medical services, 96% of providers report increased access to vaccinations. So that's really important.
And Zipline is completely emission-free since the aircraft is fully electric and it's battery-powered. It has operations in 8 countries across 4 continents. So we're really excited to speak to Zipline's head of marketing, Lauren Klein, about Zipline.
So Lauren, we were so excited when we heard about Zipline because drone food delivery sounds like it's from the future. We can't believe we have this technology now. So can you walk us through the steps? Let's say I'm ordering a Chipotle bowl. How does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is futuristic and it's here, which I think is just like the coolest thing ever. But as a customer walking through kind of the experience from their lens, let's say you're hungry, you're working from home, you want a burrito bowl, you would go onto the Zipline app, and that is where you'll be able to see all of the different options of food that you could order. One really cool thing that Zipline offers is the choice of where you want it delivered. So you could get it delivered in your front yard. You could also get it delivered in your backyard if you're worried about like your neighbor coming by and snatching that burrito bowl while you're getting off a call. But once you place your order, the restaurant's going to prep the food just like any other, marketplace out there today. You'll be notified in the app the whole time of, your food is being prepped, your food has been loaded, and your food is en route and on the way to you. And it'll be just delivered in your backyard, right where you wanted it. Super fast. Our delivery times are really fast. The burritos get there really, really hot, so they don't have to sit in traffic.
That is so cool. I mean, how does it work on the drone side of things? So is it automatic? Is someone controlling them? Who's putting the stuff in?
Yeah, great question. So the drones are fully autonomous. They fly themselves. We do have a group of certified pilots that are there to monitor the aircrafts at a fleet level, but the aircraft sits in a charging station nearby, so near the Chipotle. And once the burrito is done being made, the Chipotle employee will actually walk outside, load in a zipping point, which is Zipline's loading infrastructure. They'll just go out to the zipping point, unlock the drawer will open, they'll plop the burrito inside. That will trigger the aircraft nearby in its docking station to automatically take off. And then what's really cool is the aircraft, it's a two-part system. So the aircraft itself stays 300 feet in the sky at all times. The big reason for that is one, safety. We want to keep that thing high up, not near people. And two, for noise. It keeps it really quiet because it's staying high in the sky.
And can you show us one of the drones? We know you
Yes.
have one with you.
Absolutely. So this is going to be the delivery zip, which comes out of the bigger aircraft. And so I like to think of it as like a microwave of some sort. Really light. Like I can hold it in one hand, and that's
Whoa.
obviously really important. And then if you see what goes inside of it, this is
Yeah.
where the actual the food or product can go.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big, spacious area here.
What are the weight limitations to this?
So the aircraft is designed to hold up to 8 pounds, and it might sound like not a lot to some, but you can think of it as really feeding a family of four. So you can get
Wow.
4 baconators and 4 fries, 4 to 6 burritos, depending on how much you're packing in there.
And what cities do you serve now? Where is this available now?
We are currently in Dallas-Fort Worth. We're operating across 15 cities in that metro. We got started in Pea Ridge, Arkansas with our partnership with Walmart. And then we just launched food delivery about 3 months ago, which we're so excited about. And so right now you can get your Chipotle burrito, your Wendy's Baconator and Frosty, crumble cookies, or your Buffalo Wild Wings delivered straight to your house as well.
And we are really interested in kind of the behind the scenes. Do you have to work with local governments at all to get this approved? What is the process? Because it is obviously such a new thing you're introducing into cities.
So there's kind of two aspects here. The first is we've been partnering with the FAA for over a decade to secure the approvals that we need to just operate drones in the national airspace. So the FAA is our overall safety regulator that gives us the approval to fly. We do work really closely with local governments, however, specifically on installing our charging infrastructure.
And moving on to the national legislation, the Trump administration has specifically wanted to make it easier for businesses to use drones. We know that in the spring, Trump signed an executive order making this easier. Has that like jump started what Zipline is doing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, this is aviation, so nothing moves that fast in aviation. So back in 2012, which is what, 13 years ago now, Congress actually mandated that the FAA begin incorporating drone delivery into the national airspace. And then in 2023, under the Biden administration, that's when we got our Beyond Visual Line of Sight waiver to fly. So this has been something bipartisan. We've been working with multiple administrations and the FAA in partnership. So we're really confident and proud of that partnership and just excited for what's to come with drone delivery across the whole industry.
Is weather an issue? Like, what if it's storming out? Can these drones fly?
Yeah, so our system is designed to be able to fly in gale force winds, really heavy winds, and also really heavy rains. We've been operating for over a decade in sub-Saharan Africa with some of the most intense thunderstorms. So we've just had a lot of opportunity to understand how the system performs, gather data, but it's something we're continuing to push the envelope every day. We have a test site on the coast of California where it's really windy and really rainy, and also one in Wyoming where we can test for cold weather.
Well, we're glad you mentioned how you guys have been operating in Africa for a while because we know that Zipline actually started using drones to deliver medical supplies all around the world. So can you kind of just tell us about that and a little bit about the background?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. This is, I think, the main reason I joined Zipline, and I think for a lot of people is just the work that we've been doing for the last decade in Africa. They saw this gap in access and just hospitals not having equal access to blood, medical supplies. And after talking to just a lot of different government officials in these countries, they decided that drones were probably the best way to do that. We started in Rwanda with blood specifically because the leading indicator of female mortality in Rwanda and a lot of these countries is hemorrhaging during childbirth. blood is so complex because there's so many types, A, B, but also plasma, platelets, white blood cells. You just have to carry a really wide variety of blood. It's expensive and it goes badly really fast. And so all of that said, we decided to go into Rwanda, centralize the distribution of blood by putting a distribution center there, and then allowing hospitals when they need it to call us, WhatsApp us, text us immediately. We will pack that aircraft and get the blood there in a matter of, 20 to 30 minutes, depending on where they are. So we've brought over 5,000 hospital systems across a number of countries, and we've flown over 1.8 million deliveries in these countries in Africa themselves. And really just to kind of wrap it up, there was a study done on us recently about the impact that Zipline has had in Rwanda, and the female mortality rate has decreased by 51% across the entire country since I started operating there over a decade ago. So very passionate about our operations in Africa.
Wow, that's like literally saving lives. That's really amazing. And I guess our last question is, what is the next innovation for you guys? Are you trying to expand in the medical space or in the food delivery or something else?
Yeah, it's, right now we're focused on a little bit of everything. Food delivery is so new. It's the tip of the iceberg. There's a ton of benefits to it. It's environmentally friendly. Doesn't make sense to ship a burrito in a 3,000-pound car, but it's also just a better experience for the customer. But we're also very focused in the healthcare space, not only in Africa, but bringing more of that to the United States.
Well, thank you so much for watching another episode of Newsgirls. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and I guess hit that bell if you're feeling like it.
And join us next week where we're speaking with the guy who does Heidi Klum's like crazy prosthetics and Halloween makeup every single year. We are so excited.
Bye.